Thank you very much for joining, everyone. Thank you for joining the Revenue Optimists. We're a space for revenue operations professionals and go-to-market professionals to learn from one another, to help grow their businesses and maybe even their careers. My name is Dave Nelson. I'm the CEO of Traction Complete, where we believe that data is this incredible instruction set for businesses if it's done properly. And we're on a mission to help reduce the data complexity in Salesforce by building apps that help automatically link accounts into hierarchies, match leads to accounts and assign them to the right people, and normalize and deduplicate dirty data. And throughout our work, we get to talk to incredible go-to-market operations folks. And today, I'm lucky to be talking to and learning from Emily Barsky, who is the Global Sales Strategy and Operations Lead at Codat. So thank you very much for joining, Emily. Do you mind telling us about yourself?
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, do you mind telling us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. So as you said, I lead the sales strategy and operations team here at Codat. And so what my day-to-day function looks like is doing everything possible to make the go-to-market teams run faster and run better and improve our revenue engine. So that can include everything from managing our tech stack, like Salesforce and all the other tools we use, process, territory design, commissions, reporting, and all the other amazing things that fall under the umbrella of RevOps.
Holy smokes. Yeah, so you're taking on a ton. Do you mind giving us a little background on what Codat does?
Absolutely. So Codat is the universal API for small businesses. And so we work with our customers to allow them to connect with their small business clients, to pass back and forth accounting information, commerce data, and really speed up a lot of paper-driven processes right now. So one of our most common use cases is lending, for example. So when a small business goes to a bank, if you've ever gone to get a mortgage or any type of loan, you know that it's a lot of paperwork. You have to fill out application after application. And so by using a tool like Codat, a bank is able to plug right into their small business customers' accounting systems, commerce systems, pull that information in real time and assess the riskiness of a loan.
Oh, wow. Holy smoke. I bet you guys have some fascinating data and focus on the economy right now. We can dive into that later, but I can only imagine the insights you guys would get. Maybe before we get into that, is there something that people may not know about you or would be surprised to know as a quick icebreaker?
Oh gosh, something that people might not know about me is that I am a terrible athlete. The last time that I ever engaged in an organized sport was playing kickball, and I severed the ligament in my finger just trying to catch the ball. So I like to say I'm a mathlete, not an athlete, and I stay as far away from organized sports as possible.
Oh my goodness. Well, hey, being a mathlete is probably great for Codat and for your role. And so is this territory planning time for you right now?
Oh yeah, we're in the thick of it. So we start our planning process, I'd say in about August.
Oh, wow.
So
Okay.
halfway through Q3, we start looking at a high level and seeing, okay, let's look at headcounts, let's look at revenue targets and see where we really need to land. And then it definitely takes a pause for a little bit at the end of September. You know, we got to close out Q3, but now we are in the thick of it. And so it is a lot of planning, but it's also really important to make sure you're not creating a noise and distraction for the sales team, because this is the most important quarter of the year. It's Q4. They got deals to close out. They have to hit their goals. So you don't want salespeople worrying about, oh, am I going to lose this account? Am I not going to have this next year? What's my commission plan going to be? And so you have to be sensitive to those things as going through planning, but also ensure you're not causing any immediate disruption to Q4, and make sure that, you know, once we get to January 2nd, my team can just press go, press upload, and we can have those new territories and all that communication out. But just to make sure it doesn't disrupt the current.
Totally. Absolutely. Yeah. I don't think anyone at the company would be happy if you disrupted Q4. Oh, that's great. So you guys actually are able to hit go basically right at the start of the new year. It's not some lag. I know a lot of companies kind of mix that and end up starting kind of closer to the end of Q1. with their
Yeah,
new 10
that's the goal. I would say last year we got to the end of January and we had to roll everything out, so we were a few weeks delayed. And because of that, we started earlier this year. So
Nice.
our goal is we're having our company kickoff in London the week of January 15th, and I want everything signed, sealed, delivered out the door before I get on the plane to London, so we can use that week to really collaborate and plan and get set for a successful 23.
Nice. Yeah, that's great. And I think everyone will appreciate that too. So there's not that limbo period where you're not sure how much effort to put into an account because you might lose it anyway.
Exactly. This is salespeople's livelihood. It's
Yeah,
territories, it's quotas, it's commission. You don't want to leave people guessing or to not make it clear what they should be working on at any time.
no kidding. I mean, it's the whole company's livelihood, right? Because if the sales team's less productive, then everyone's gonna feel the results of that. Okay, so you go through verticals. Do you also have segments? Do you have like strategic reps, enterprise, mid-market, SMB kind of thing?
Yes, we do. We do a size band. So we have mid-market, which basically covers everything from 500 employees and under, and then enterprise and strategic, who cover the largest accounts. Although some of those strategic accounts are not necessarily the biggest. They could be strategic for other reasons. Maybe it's because of the logo or because of the usage that they could unlock in our account. It just doesn't have to be the biggest tech companies and banks out there. There are a lot of different factors that can make an account strategic.
Okay, so tell me more about that. Yeah, because I can imagine obviously how much they've spent would be a massive driver. Propensity to spend if they're a massive organization might be another, but it sounds like it could just be a logo. How do you guys decide, and how many do you provide to each of your strategic reps?
Yeah, so we have a list of, I believe it's about 100 strategic accounts across the entire organization for 2023. And the way that we decide on those is we look at the revenue, we look at the usage percentages they could unlock, we look at like what geography they're in. I think a really, really exciting thing for us is, like I said, we started in London. We've since expanded to North America. We have a Sydney office in Australia too. So when we're looking at strategic accounts, we want to make sure that they fit into our global expansion strategy, and that we have the coverage in terms of API integrations to properly support that customer. So that's a big piece of it. And then also, yeah, there are some logos. Our founders have a few favorite companies that they always say, you close this deal, I'm taking you out for a nice steak dinner. And those are the strategic accounts because they can be such big players in the market.
Propensity. Yeah, I believe it. And then how do you also decide like how many strategic reps are you going to have versus enterprise versus SME mid-market? Because
Yeah,
at some
absolutely.
point you have
That's
to,
always such a tough balancing
yeah.
exercise. And I think you really have to look at the way that the sales cycle and the customer buys, and know what the capacity of every sales rep is. A mid-market rep, for example, can have 30 opportunities going at once, or, a full list of 100 accounts, where a strategic AE could be fully loaded at 3 accounts.
Mhm.
And so it's really working closely with the sales directors to understand, what are the buying cycles for these companies? When are they going to be coming up? When are our customers versus prospects? What we've learned on the strategic side is our customers take just as much love and attention as the prospects do, sometimes even more, from the account executive. And so making sure we have that balance where someone can be successful and can hit their targets, but also have enough to eat.
Well, and that's the big question is what is enough and when are they at capacity? Did you guys do analysis around like number of meetings or number of activities, or is it more kind of gut feel around when they're fully loaded?
Yeah, it's really about the number of opportunities. So really it's meeting, because we open an opportunity when a meeting is booked. And so it's looking at how many open opportunities they have in a quarter. What does their pipeline look for the following quarter? How much of their pipeline is being generated by the BDRs or maybe even the partner channel? And understanding, does this person have enough time to win and be successful, or maybe there's an opportunity to slot another AE into that territory.
Well, that's the
Or
big question,
maybe
right?
they're starving and they're not getting enough out of their territory and need to supplement it with some other accounts as well.
And that's always the question, right? Is how do you decide when they're executing, at max capacity, and anything more you give them is just going to get lost in the noise,
Yeah.
versus how much more can they take on? Because to your point earlier about ramp time, you have some fantastic, I'm guessing, some fantastic reps that are ramped and can probably take on more. Or you could share the load, bring on another AE that has to ramp and might fumble the ball a few times. It's that really tough decision to make. Have you guys
Yeah.
had any metrics or anything around there? Or is it more kind of growth plans for the year?
That's a really good question. I think one of the tools that has actually really helped us here is Chorus, through conversation intelligence, because it allows us to flag deals where there are competitors mentioned, or there aren't enough stakeholders involved, or there's no next steps in place. And so we can kind of almost see through a pattern by looking at these AE's pipeline. Okay, are they servicing the accounts the way that they should and doing follow-up in a timely manner, and looking at their activities and when was the last touch, for example, and how many people they're working with. I think we know buying software is no longer just talking to one person. It's all buying committees and 3 to 5 people, and how many thumbs up you need behind those 3 to 5 people. And so having a tool like that allows our sales directors and the ops team to have that type of insight without needing to be on every single call has been a real game changer for us. And also it's, again, helping those sales reps who come on board scale faster, because they're not just going around and asking every AE, oh, can you add me to some calls to shadow? We can say, hey, here's our hit list of the 10 best calls we had. And here's how you run a good discovery call. And here's a really great demo. And they can go in and they can watch it and rewind and be on demand. And so that tool has been a real game changer for us.
They're amazing. We don't use Chorus, we use Gong, but same idea. And yes, exactly. To be able to re-listen to it, to help onboard, to categorize them into areas for negotiation or competitive analysis or overcoming objections. Yeah, they're amazing. So you mentioned
like tag competitors has been really helpful for us to understand who we're coming up against.
Okay, so you mentioned you started your territory planning back in August. What does that exercise look like? What are you doing in the next 4 months to actually make those changes?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's looking at the TAM and making sure that we have enough. And also a big piece of it might be going out and doing some database work and using ZoomInfo to pull in the new accounts and what isn't in our database, finding out where those green spots, those green spaces are, and filling that out. So that's always one of the first things I like to do when I'm starting a territory exercise is like, let's get this list up to date. And obviously, you know, our BDRs are constantly prospecting and adding accounts to the system, but there's nothing
I was
like
just going to say,
adding in a full list.
So what is the difference then between the accounts that you're pulling in that exercise versus what the BDRs would be pulling?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Honestly, there isn't that much of a difference. The filters are generally the same. Sometimes it's just outside of their size band or outside of their focus. If we have a new sub industry that we're going to, be coming up with, then I'll definitely pull up on those accounts and add them into the database. And so things like that.
Okay. So then you're adding them in, you're probably enriching them as well, making sure the firmographics are up to date. So you get those segments you talked about, verticals.
Yeah.
Too.
Exactly. Yeah. So we use ZoomInfo, which does a weekly enrichment of all of our accounts and contacts to make sure that we have the most up-to-date data on them and it's accurate. Things like employee count changes frequently, or if someone leaves the company, we want to be able to have that flag. And so using a tool like ZoomInfo saves our BDRs a ton of time, is just verifying that the data is correct. They trust that it's accurate.
Okay, so then you've got the firmographics in there and the accounts. What's next in that territory planning?
Yeah, I would say what's next is meeting with the sales directors and getting an understanding of what their goals are and what their visions are for the team. I've gone through enough territory exercise where I was like, all right, I have all the data. Let me do a first pass of this. And then you do that and you've wasted a ton of time because you don't have full insight to what all of the stakeholders have. And so you really want to go around and make sure that everyone agrees, again, getting that buy-in and document all the decisions that you're making and why you're making them and why accounts would be going to one place or another, and then getting that sign off so that we have that understanding. And so that process is really the longer part of it, is getting everyone aligned on the same goals. If sales directors have overlapping territories, it might just be like, okay, let's draw a line in the sand and where does this go? And we're really kind of just finishing off that process. And so it will really be the month of December is spent actually in the data, doing the cutting, delivering the lists, and sending those out to the sales directors for sign off. But more of it is really just communicating and getting buy-in from all of the different stakeholders.
Gotcha. Do you end up
Making sure
doing
they don't
any?
conflict with each other.
Yeah, I believe it. Do you end up doing any scoring of those territories or accounts to make them even, or is that more kind of gut feel from those sales directors that you're talking?
Yeah, absolutely. We do account scoring. Account scoring is a tough thing. I think the first time that we tried to take a whack at it, we tried to do too much. So we were looking at industry and size and recency of funding and who their investors were. And I think there were like 5 or 6 different levers in there. And it was just, we couldn't get it to point in the right direction.
Okay.
Some worked, some didn't. And so we really stripped that all back, and now do a scoring just based on the sub industry. I think a second iteration of that will be adding in a layer of the size. For example, banks that are enterprise are very valuable for us, whereas, a mid-sized bank probably isn't a great opportunity for us. So we started with just going with the industry scoring, and then we'll bring in the size. But yeah, we always want to look at that by a territory basis to make sure they're even. Also, another thing, when we're shifting territories, we want to look at what is the number of customers that they have, and open pipeline. If one AE has a high number of customers and another AE has no customers, they're not going to be happy. We have retention as part of our quota plan. Like I said, usage is life. You want those customers. And so making sure that things are balanced, obviously from the TAM perspective, but also from the number of clients that they're dealing with, and making sure they're not overloaded there, I think is really important.
Well, Emily, thank you so much for running me through that. I could pick your brain all day on this. I have so many more questions about territory scoring and planning and all the strategy that you're doing. And hopefully you'll come on back, and so we can dive into some other questions that'll help the community. I know some of this stuff is helping me with our business. So yeah, I really, really appreciate it.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Dave. It was great to join and talk shop with you.
All right. Thanks, Emily. Bye now.